Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is game day. We got the Toledo Rockets in town. 7:30 kickoff on Fox today. We have some big predictions for today. I think it's going to be interesting to see how competitive this game is because, we beat Notre Dame. Turns out Notre Dame's not that great. We had a decent game versus a terrible opponent in Arkansas State. Toledo's better than them, and I think Toledo could beat Notre Dame if they played them today. So it's going to be real interesting to see how the night goes. Obviously, most people are hoping for a blowout since it is a MAC school. It is a smaller Ohio school, but these games, especially after last week, and I tell people, you never know, and these kids better be motivated because I know Toledo is going to be. So with that being said, as always, guys, we're thankful for you guys. We are crushing it on the YouTube subscribers. 16,000. We just passed it. Trying to get to 17. So we appreciate you guys. Any of these videos that you enjoy, send them to your friends. Say, hey, leave a like. Comment below. I want your bold predictions for the Toledo game. So this is going to go up real quick here. It'll be up, in the middle of these noon games. And I want to hear your bold predictions. Also, pick your MVP. Who will be the MVP of the game? And I'd love to see how many of you guys can nail it. All right. That being said, bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you?
I'm doing well. Big game today. They're all big when you only have 12 or 13 of them. And Ohio State's been working on some interesting things this week. It'll be interesting to see if they start unveiling some of it or they start keeping it under wraps for whiskey. But they've been opening the playbook a little bit, opening the playbook on offense, opening the playbook on defense, and starting to show a little bit more. It's gonna be a fun game to watch.
It's really funny you mentioned that because when I worked for Jim Tressel, I worked for Urban Meyer, and even when I played for Jim Tressel, one of the things that's kind of some gamesmanship that coaches would do is they would show some stuff that they might not intend to ever use against Wisconsin. Because when you show it in the game prior to Wisconsin, those coaches, those scout team coaches, they get put in the scouting report. And sometimes you do that. It's almost kind of like as a funny way to make, another team have to work on something that you'll never show. And some instances are with Urban in 2012, we had a short yardage formation where we had a tackle over where we put the two tackles on one side and we put the tight end basically at like a left tackle position. We huddled. We ran a short huddle, which with Tom Herman, we never huddled. And we would it was on the first down. We do the short huddle. They'd sprint up to the line, snap the ball, and then, throw it. It was either there were two throws and a run out of it. And we never showed that any other game except for the week before Michigan State. So I think we were playing like Central Florida and we were running it a bunch. And it's just like those little things that we'd never showed. And then then they got to get ready for this. We called it like the explode huddle, where it was like you huddle like 3 yards from the ball, not the normal 6-7 yards. And there's all these little things that coaches do that are kind of silly and they're kind of funny, but if you don't practice for them, you're not ready for them. It's a big deal. And sometimes in these lesser games, you can pull some stuff out like that. Nevada, what do you want to see out of the team tonight? Obviously, I think that last week was a great thing for Ohio State, just seeing Texas A&M go down, seeing Notre Dame lose again to these lesser opponents. I think it's a great wake-up call in college football for these teams. Some of these lesser teams are pretty good. And with COVID, some of these teams are loaded up with 4th, 5th, and 6th year super seniors because of that COVID year. So they're not the normal, 4th year guys. You got guys that are, should be 2 years out, they're 25 years old that are still playing, and it's crazy. But what do you want to see out of the Bucks today? And who do you want to see step up and have a big day?
Well, it's been interesting because just the Ohio State staff's approach to this whole game has been really interesting to watch because, we talked about earlier in the week how Ohio State was going best on best and, ones versus one, number one offense versus number one defense, but just a little bit unusual for this time of year, a little bit unusual for this opponent in terms of, bringing Ohio State up. Well, they've also been putting up all the stuff about all the upsets and the wackiness of the college football season for the guys. I for whatever reason, you're getting the impression that the Ohio State staff is, I'm not saying they're on upset alert, but they're really focused on this game in terms of taking a big step forward. I think they're looking at this to be kind of a statement game, not only for inside the program, but for outside the program. Let everybody know that Ohio State's completely back, ready to go. And, I the more I hear from Ohio State, I've been predicting a little bit closer game. I think this one might get stretched out a little bit. I think Ohio State is really putting an emphasis on this game for whatever reason. They feel like this is the time to kind of push those buttons, bring this team up, make some things happen, and I think Ohio State's going to show out tonight against Toledo, and I think we're in for a big effort.
I hope we do. The things that worry me the most, I think that how thin we are at receiver, it worries me. We're one Marvin or a Mecca injury away from being really up the creek in terms of receiver depth. Because I don't know how healthy Jackson Smith and Jigba is. I mean, Kiabab and Julian Fleming, I hope they dress tonight. I don't know how much you can get out of two guys that haven't been able to stay healthy. I mean, for whatever reason, it's not their fault. They're good kids, but it's just, they've had nagging. Fleming's shoulder has been a consistent problem. Cam Bab obviously has a bulky knee. I would love for this thing to turn to a track meet. I would love for Trey Henderson to get off. If we'd ever give him more than 15 touches in a game, I mean, I don't know if we're saving him for the NFL or what it is, but he's the most underutilized player maybe in the history of Ohio State at this point. But he's a guy that needs more touches. I think you should throw him the ball some, especially with the receivers being out. This is like one of those. Michael Thomas is hurt, and you got a bunch of guys on the Saints that wide receiver hurt. So Alvin Kamara's got to get 15 targets. This is like one of those things where it just makes sense because Trey's skill set is very much that of a dynamic, do all pass catching, run between the tackles. He literally can. He's like a 5-tool baseball player. He can literally do everything, but you got to feed the kid. He needs more touches. Nevada, as we move along in the season, obviously Wisconsin is going to be a monster game next week. Do you worry about the volume of night games that we've played? Because we're going to have one tonight. We got one against Wisconsin. Does that bother you at all? I mean, as a former player and coach, I know it's well documented that I hate night games, and it sucks because these kids literally have to sit around the hotel all day long. It's awful. But what are your thoughts on having 3 early night games? Is there any lingering fatigue? Does it drain the team at all? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think it's unprecedented, and anytime you do stuff that's without precedent, you're a little worried because for Ohio State, you need a smooth ride to go undefeated, and you're introducing. I love as a fan, I love night games. I love the energy. I should say I love home night games. I hate road night games, but I think for the Ohio State team, it definitely presents a unique set of challenges because, as you said, we're heading up on this number of night games, and you're looking out at the schedule, and there could be more to be announced. So, Ohio State could be in for 4 or 5 night games, and that's different. It's a different thing than any Ohio State team's ever had to deal with before. I do think there are issues. I mean, the idea that your game prep gets interrupted a full day because you're playing at night. So generally, then Sunday you're off, and then everything that you were going to be doing on Sunday you generally do on Monday, and everything just gets pushed back. That's an underrated thing. It's like in the NFL when you're playing those Thursday night games or those Monday night games, they would see the impact on teams of the loss of one day of preparation. Well, Ohio State's losing 1 day of preparation, 3, 4, 5 times this year, and hopefully it doesn't come up to catch them and cause difficulties for them. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And for Ohio State, it's gonna add just another challenge to just a wacky college football season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the one thing that makes it slightly easier is that none of them have been road games, thank God. Because the road night game is the absolute worst because these kids literally get home at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. You got to get back in the facility at 2. A lot of times, like Urban would always push it and say, all right, we're not going to meet on Sunday. And, the players get their off day on Sunday, and then they have their work day on Monday. And again, I always hated that because I'd rather, the Sunday is generally a pretty light practice. Urban, with Tress, it was supremely light. It was like nothing. And then with Urban, it was like we do some 2-minute stuff. We do some early looks at, say Wisconsin tomorrow. They do some carded, look at the scout team looks and have a scout team defense present a look. And then they do some 2-minute, like 1-0, 1D, which was kind of like conditioning. But it was nice because, when you get Monday off, you legitimately get an entire off day. You don't get, like with Sunday, it's like, I mean, I don't know, like when you'd have Monday as a work day, that generally turned into like a real practice where it's like, we're out there in shells and, it's a full 2 hour practice. So, I mean, the Sunday would probably be about a 45-minute practice and a lot lighter. And then you get that full off day on Monday. And Monday, for a lot of these guys, it was funny. I talked to a couple players last week and I was like, what day are you really the most sore? And like some of these guys, like Tuesday was their worst days in terms of the soreness really setting into their body. And I mean, for me, Monday was always a terrible day, like in terms of just feeling like trash when I got out of bed. And, when you know that you don't have to go to practice that day and you can go just hit the hot tub, cold tub, get a lift in, it helps you survive and feel a little bit better. Nevada, give me your MVP, your projection tonight for who do you want to see step up? Who do you think does step up? And who, maybe give me like a kind of like a top notch MVP, like a starter type MVP, and then give me like a sleeper of a guy that could be real productive tonight.
Well, who I'd like to see be productive days. You mentioned Trey Henderson. I'd like to see Trey Henderson. I mean, I like to see Jackson Smith and Jigba go off. I mean, I know people are talking about him being on a pitch count and saving him for Wisconsin. And it's not, hey, this is his last year. I want to see as much of him as possible. If he's ready to go, let's. Yeah, I just want to see Jackson Smith and Jigba go off, and we only have a few more games to see him, and this is the end of his career at Ohio State. If he could have played last week, if the medical staff says he's cleared, I've just never been of the opinion that you got to wrap these guys in bubble wrap and save them. I think their careers are all too short. You only get to see him so much, and if he's cleared to play, then play him. And I think that nothing, will get Ohio State ready more, and nothing will improve the offensive passing game more and give more cohesion to everything that we're doing than to have your number one wide receiver come back. And I say the same thing for Cam Babb. I'd say the same thing for Julian Fleming. Like, if guys are ready to play them. And if they're not ready, then obviously, nobody would ever argue for anybody playing before they're ready. But I think for Ohio State, I'd love to see him go off, as an underrated. I'd love to see any one of the younger wide receivers emerge, catch a couple of passes, flash, show a little bit of activity. And, right now it's Xavier Johnson and then nobody. And I'd like to see some of those guys come out. And I know they've got the talent, they've got the ability, and they're starting to show it in practice. And Ohio State's challenging these guys to do so. They're challenging some of these young wide receivers to step up and grab the golden ring. And, I think we can see that happen. I'd like to see that happen. And tonight's the night for something like that to happen. Now, defensively, I'd love to see a couple of sacks out of the defensive ends. I'd love to see some more of the exotic blitzes that they've been practicing during the week. I'd love to see them try that overload blitz that they're doing. I'd like to see them present some of those different looks, but just continue to improve. Just take a nice, steady step of improvement for them. It'd be nice to see a young cornerback, maybe a Jacqueline Johnson or something like that, step up and make some plays and do some things for the defense. With Denzel Brooks struggling a little bit, we've got some talented guys back there. It'd be nice to see somebody in the defensive backfield come out of nowhere, make some plays, make an impact on this OSU defense, and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, offensively, I would love to see. I'd like to see CJ take a step, because I think that he's been good. I think he had gaudy numbers versus just an awful Arkansas State team. A lot of run after catch for Marvin in that one. Emeka, same way. But, I think that there's another level that he can reach. I don't think that he's been as good as he was late last year. So I think that that'd be interesting to see if he can find that new level. I think that part of it comes with, our interior really having a strong day pass blocking, our interior offensive line. But again, with CJ, you're limited when you don't have your number one receiver. You've got kind of a wonky, deal. And I think that they're doing a lot of the 21 personnel with the two tight ends. 21 means two tight ends, one running back. They're running a lot of the Cade Stover and Mitch Rossi stuff because I don't think they trust the number 3 receiver as much as you'd like. So we're running a lot more two tight ends than I think I've ever seen since the Jim Tressel days on offense, because Urban never ran two tight ends. And Ryan likes that formation because it gives you some serious advantages when you put it into the short side of the field. When you put the two tight ends on the short side of the field, you'll see it tonight. There's a tight end and a wing. The wing is Mitch Rossi. And then you throw Marvin Harrison Emeka or Marvin Harrison and Jackson Smith and Jigba out to the wide side of the field, that is really hard to defend. And the defense basically has to say, okay, we're going to either help on the running game to the short side where the two tight ends are, or we're going to help against two of the best receivers in the country. So that is going to be that'll be fascinating. Defensively, I'd love to see Tyreek get some more burn. Obviously, Mike Hall has been a supernova as a pass rusher so far. I'm not gonna lie, I would have lost a lot of money betting that Jack and JT would have 0 sacks, especially after that Arkansas State game when I saw their left tackle was 6'3", little short arms. I was like, yeah, they'll be able to get through those guys quick. And Arkansas State got rid of the ball fast, but hey, that's part of the game now. When you're playing against really good ends, and Toledo's gonna get rid of the ball fast too, because they know these guys can't hang in versus Jack and JT. But a guy that there's been a lot of noise about this week is Chip Trevanium, because that's the kid that came from Arizona State. If he was still there, he'd probably be their starting tailback. And he hasn't done anything in the first 2 days. I mean, he maybe a little bit of garbage time minutes against Arkansas State, but that's the kid that, preseason, there were rumblings he was the backup linebacker at both spots behind Tommy and Steele. But in reality, that wasn't the case. It was Cody Simon the whole way. Cody's been the guy that's rotated with those two. And we haven't seen Chip much in grind time. So Ryan Day is basically going to let him return kicks. So you're going to let this incredible Hulk looking linebacker, former running back, be your primary kick returner, which again, I love when we take guys like Emeka off of that. And Emeka is a special kick returner, but you got to save him for offense because we don't have enough receivers. So, if you could take a little bit off his plate and you can find someone else to be the kick returner, and then you get Chip into the game and he has a starting role and a real role, I think that's mutually beneficial for both the offensive skill room and for Chip, just for his morale. Because, when a guy's the man at Arizona State and he comes here and doesn't play, there's always issues, and I've seen it, I know it, I can smell it when there's an issue when a kid's not getting any playing time after he was probably promised some time, or he was probably, hey, you'll be in the mix at linebacker, and he hasn't done anything. So giving him that role, I think, was smart by Ryan Day, smart by Jim Knowles, and it's really interesting that we haven't found more of a blitzing or some sort of role for him. But Jim Knowles knows much more about defense than I do, so I trust in his judgment. Nevada, to wrap this thing up, score prediction and any other final musings before the foot hits the ball versus Toledo tonight.
Well, no, I just want to go back to that linebackers thing with you just for a second. I mean, you think about Chips, the pitch for them, they're pitching him to come here and play. And think about one of the forgotten men in this whole Ohio State defense has been Taraja Mitchell. Like we talked about him, your captain, and now it's it's like I had to check the roster, see if he's still even on the team. And, I think they were concerned about the linebacker room and, what happened. Now also, do you look at the linebacker room with Tommy and Steele and Cody coming like a freight train now, and Chip, and they're trying to find a unique way to keep Chip engaged, and having it back on, like you said, running kicks is a very interesting way to do that. But I just thought it was interesting how the linebacker room, we're sending out the 4-alarm fire to all these schools. Hey, we need a linebacker. We need a linebacker. Well, we had them all these years. We just hadn't coached them up. So that's my thoughts on that. As for the score prediction, I've been going with 42-14, but now I'm getting a little bit more bullish. I think Ohio State's going to show it out a little bit. I think I'm going with 56-10. I'm going to go with 56-10. I just think Ohio State is going to put it down. They're putting it down with the kids. They're putting the pressure on the kids. The practices have been up tempo. That they've got the signs posted about the upset alert. They're focusing on this game for whatever reason. They're focusing on this game, and I think when you do that, I generally think you'll see a little better effort than we think. And I think Ohio State's going to play well.
I love that. I'm going to go 42-21. I think Toledo might get a score late versus our AYOs, all you others, once they get in the game. But, I feel like it feels like about that type of game. I think that, it'll be a typical game script similar to last week where I felt we played the starters too long. I think Ryan is a lot like Urban. He loves his numbers. He loves the statistics. He loves being rated high in offense, number 1 in offense. So he keeps the. I mean, it's like Urban. I mean, he kept them starters in as long as possible just to make sure that we had the stats looking as sparkly as possible because that helps in recruiting. It helps, basically in everything. But I always disagreed and didn't care because I think if we're up by 4 scores and it's in the third quarter, fourth quarter, get the starters out and put these young guys in. Because again, I'm a big believer. It's not that I don't want the starters to work hard or get more plays, but I want them to stay healthy for Wisconsin, and I want these young guys to get out there and prove they can actually play. That's the bigger thing. It's like I just know, when these young guys have to actually get into the game and play and focus, and they actually have to get graded on Sunday, and they have to look at their grades, and it's a nice little stick when these guys say, "Man, I wish I was playing more." I was like, "Well, your grade against Toledo was a 68%, so." Or it was a 88%, and maybe you got to get them in the games. For some of these young guys, like it's always exciting to see what guys flash in quote unquote garbage time. It's garbage time for the fans, but for these players that are trying to get a spot or move up the depth chart or be the starter come next spring, it is very important time. So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap this thing up. As always, thank you, Nevada. A great, great episode. Another good one. Appreciate you guys. As always, we are going to be on BuckeyeScoop.com on the game thread, cranking. We have the most active game thread in the industry for any Ohio State message board. We appreciate you guys. Me and Nevada Buck run that thing. We're in that thing all day. I specifically am not going to the game today so I can be super active on the board. I love being on the board. I frankly enjoy being at my house and being on the board and interacting with you guys. So appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a spectacular day today. I hope you guys really enjoy the game today. I'm going to be watching it with my family at my house. It's going to be great. And I hope you guys have a great time. So if you enjoyed this video, leave us a like, subscribe to the channel, comment, give me your score prediction, and I want your game MVP. So write that in for me. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. It's game day. Beat the Rockets. Beat Toledo. Go Bucks. Have a good one. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.